August 10th. The Governmental Affairs and Public Information Committee has now been called to order. We're going to kind of get into some traffic safety items today and just get some overview. I think just a quick review on that. We have been looking at potentially getting automated traffic enforcement approved here in the city of Birmingham, which would allow us to have more tools in the toolbox, utilize cameras to enforce a new number of traffic violations. Throughout the city, we've gotten a lot of complaints, and I've gotten a lot in my district from things speeding through neighborhoods, speeding through school zones. Centerpoint Parkway has been a big one. A lot of red lights run, a lot of damage to city property, a lot of injuries to individuals, vehicles, and even fatalities. And so, really moving towards finding some solutions that actually help improve on that situation as far as traffic safety in our city. And so we worked on getting a bill approved through Montgomery. I've been working on that really for the last few years. Councilor Abbott has been in a lot of those meetings with me, working towards that. And so we've kind of, continued to make some progress. We did get the bill through the Senate last year in Montgomery, but did not get it through the House. And so we made some tweaks this year, and I think we're hopefully in a better position this year to get that done. And so want to just kind of start really the education process to make sure people are aware of, what is automated traffic enforcement, what are some ways that we can identify some issues in our traffic safety program and move towards really safer roadways at the end of the day. Like I can say that speeding, traffic safety is a top 3 complaint in my district, and that may be the same in other areas of the city as well. And so we want to just start to gather as much information and make sure the public is informed as to what this is, and I think that starts here, and I think it's a good time to get started on that as we prepare for the next session. And so we're going to start with Mr. Todd Rode, who's the CFO of Peachtree Recovery Service, and he's just going to kind of give us an overview of what they do, which is a service that goes out, identifies hot spots, and proposes potential solutions. And so if you'd like to come on up, and I believe they have your presentation in the back. I guess I didn't check if they were ready in the back, did I? But if we could load that one up, there we go. And you should have a hard copy there in front of you as well. I'll let you introduce yourself in case I didn't do a good enough job.
No. Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank the city council members and Mr. Jones for the opportunity to speak with you today and share a little information on our traffic and public safety program. If you could go to the next slide. So one of the unique things that Peachtree Recovery Services does that typically no other company that we're aware of in the U.S. actually does is we go into cities and counties, and we basically
if you could
I'm sorry,
sense it to the mic, you can kind of pull it to you, but
basically we go into cities and gain access to the traffic accident reports and counties as well, and typically when we're recovering money from property damages, fire hydrants, light poles, there's a phenomenal amount of property damage that occurs in just about every city, and most cities don't have the resources to go to review all of that, file all of those claims, and recover all of that money. So that's initially where Peachtree Recovery started. But what we learned over the years was that we're looking at 100% of the traffic accidents over multiple years. So typically in the state of Georgia, the property damage statute of limitation is 4 years. So we would go back and read 4 years worth of traffic accident reports to basically profile the whole city and say, here's where all your damages are occurring and here's the assets that are being damaged. Then we started thinking about, if we're already seeing property damage, why are we not looking at personal injuries? Why are we not looking at fatalities and pedestrians as well, to take a safety perspective on it? So that's what we began doing. So what this program is very similar to the property damage program, where we go back many years, we look at all your traffic accident reports, and then we generate maps that you'll see on here to the right, they're called heat maps. And you've probably seen those before. They're very popular right now. That basically gives you the concentration areas of where pedestrians are being hit. What we do is we kind of go through and we try to identify all of those. And once we pick out a certain set of the hot spots, then what we do is we go and review all the traffic accident reports that are inside of that hot spots. For example, if there were 41 accidents at a certain intersection over a year period, we'll go in and read all 41 of those, and we're looking for contributing factors, root causes, why is this occurring so often here? And then we make recommendations to the city on here's how we resolve these things. And that's an ongoing process. We just look at it year after year after year. Most of our clients that we work with ends up being about a 5-year contract. It's usually three-year initial term and then 2 one-year extensions. But it's an ongoing process. So it's a case where we make recommendations. Hopefully, the clients follow through and do the implementation of those things. And then we're constantly reviewing that same intersection to make sure that we are seeing the reductions that we anticipated we would see. If not, we make new recommendations on technologies that we want to use to basically reduce those. Next slide, please. Apologize, I made all this too small. There's a lot of text on there, but one of the things this table gives you is an idea of the total number of accidents that the city has. So you're rushing around 19,000 a year. We would review all 19,000 of those, and then we would determine the heat maps for those other categories: injuries, fatalities, and pedestrians. And we would basically say, hey, here's where the problem areas are. The interesting thing that I'm sure you guys are very well of, I know Mr. Jones is very well of this, is that a lot of the cities in the U.S. have jumped into Vision Zero, which is a European concept coming from very small countries, and we've tried to apply that here. Once we started looking at a lot of those numbers in 2019, we pretty much decided Vision Zero's got problems. And I think the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration really changed the program, kind of renamed it Road to Zero to kind of get away from the stigma that was attached to Vision Zero. And what the big thing was that we saw was that when we got to 2019, we started seeing increases in fatalities and pedestrians. Then something very, very unique happened in 2020 when the pandemic came. Since we look at 100% of these traffic accidents, we saw about a 40% decline in the total number of traffic accidents in most cities. And that's because everybody was mandated to stay home. So we would have anticipated that the data would have also reflected that the injuries, fatalities, and incidents involving pedestrians would have declined as well. Unfortunately, that was not the case. It actually went the other direction. Many cities saw doubling of fatalities. Very, very strange. We wish we had solutions, but we haven't looked at all of those to really understand what those are. So what we incorporated in our program is really looking at all of these hot spots. And the way we kind of look at it is if you go in and identify where all the troubled areas are in the city and you tackle those and you take care of those numbers, then your total statistics are going to drop pretty significantly. We'll talk about this. So next slide, please, where we talk about the two different kinds of the hot spots that we're concerned with. The first one is the systemic. So only way you're going to know if a hot spot is systemic is you're going to have to look at multiple years of that data. So you got 19,000 a year, let's just say roughly 20,000 a year. If I go back 4 years, I look at 80,000 reports. If we've got an intersection that is always a hot spot, that's systemic. That means it's been a problem in the city for a long time and it hasn't been addressed, or solutions were not working. In either case, those are typically the first things you're going to want to go after. Why? Because they're contributing to your statistics every year. We go in and we try to solve those problems, and typically we would have a list of those that we would solve work on solving initially. What that's going to do is that's going to bring your numbers down. Then the other area you have is going to be what we call the growth areas for hotspots. So basically, when you start bringing new businesses in, you start putting up new neighborhoods, new churches, new schools, you're going to see people movement, right? And then when you start seeing people move in areas that typically didn't have a lot of people, your statistics are going to start increasing. You're going to start seeing the accidents in all those areas. Those are growth areas. They're very evident from your data because we would be able to go back a couple of years and see, all right, that intersection didn't have problems here before, so it's a growth area. And that means we have a little bit of time to work on that one, but we would address that secondary. So we hit all the systemic, which is going to bring all the numbers down initially, and then we're going to go after the new stuff to fix those. And you typically want to look at each one of those individually because as an engineer, I know it's very difficult to grab a technology and use it as a citywide solution. Saying, putting certain sensors at every intersection is kind of a waste of money for you because you may not have a problem and need that sensor at that intersection. So that's why we do something very unique, is that we study everything and we look at all of the problems and we treat everything separately. So that is the kind of information that we'll be feeding back to the city. It'll be a lot of information. Now, in terms of, next slide please, for the program startup. We start out the programs normally by reviewing everything as far as we can. In Alabama, that'll be 2 years for property damages. And then what we ask is that you give us the opportunity to go recover all of these funds for you. We work on a contingency fee, meaning that if I work for you for 2 years and I do not return you any money, you do not owe me anything because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. So the program startup is typically to go after those revenues, and we use a contingency fee. So we will take our fee from the part of the money we recover. That way the city doesn't require a budget line item for us. So that if you had us on contract for 5 years, we're funding ourselves. And that's by going to recover your money from all these property damages that are occurring in the city. Once we have that going, which typically starts pretty quickly, within 2 months, money starts coming back to the city, and our program's pretty much in full swing. We go get our information typically from the ALEA and the CAPS program at the University of Alabama, so we work with them to capture all that data. Reason we do that is we don't have to come to the city for data. So if you have high turnover and we had a contact and they're not there anymore, and we have issues trying to access the data, we don't have to worry about that because we work with the ALEA and CAPS. We've written our own software to work with their systems. So we're pretty much in full swing with them right now. So the startup of the program is pretty easy. So typically, you'll see the little diagram that basically once we have the contract, we're really not needing any more resources from the city. We're going to take it from there and run with it. So we will send monthly reports, on the property damages to show you what monies that are coming back to the city, and then we will have roughly 2 reports that will come back to the city from a safety standpoint. Doing all of the hotspot analysis is pretty time consuming, so we couldn't do that. We don't have enough resources to do that on a monthly basis. So you'll get 1 report very quickly, which is going to be a capture from 2021, which was a pretty peak period for most cities in terms of damages and all that. So you'll get that safety report probably around the 2-month mark. From contract start. That's going to be your initial profile from what we see in terms of the injuries, fatalities, and accidents with pedestrians. So it's going to give you your first picture of where these hot spots are. Inside of that report, we also make recommendations on here's the kind of technologies you could use to basically reduce those quantity of accidents. So we work with a lot of vendors. We try to find technologies that are not really one-off solutions. We don't want one-purpose solution technologies. We want something that's got additional functionality and added capabilities so that as the cities grow and these problems change, that you're not taking down hardware we just put up last year to add new hardware that's got more functionality, right? It's already going to be there. We just need to turn it on. So we try to work closely with companies to recommend those kind of technologies. Next slide, please. So the real key thing about our service is that it is 100% of the traffic acts. We are looking at everything. And we even go back multiple years. I mean, that's how we determine what's systemic. The great thing is that it is a data-based approach. The only caveat or caution I may have with that, it is a data-based approach. We have not looked at the quality of the information that is inside of the traffic accident report. So if we run into cases where a lot of these hotspot maps that you'll see on the next slide, they use the GIS information. We work with the city of Montgomery as well, and we have noticed that there are many crash reports that do not have GIS information. So basically, they don't show up on these maps that we create. So right now, we are investing in some new software that's going to help us overcome that so that we can still see that even though that information is not in the crash reports. But that's normally just a caution when you do data analysis. It's only as good as the information that's getting fed into the system. So I just want to bring that up and to say that we have not looked at a big pool of the crash reports for the city because we don't have access to that. And normally, probably within the first month of actually looking at that, we'll have a very good feel for how well that data is going to work for us. Next slide, please. So this is to give you a quick look at the property damages. And this is just an example of another city, kind of give you an idea, and we can give you lots of comparisons with other cities, so you can kind of see where your numbers fall if you want to get an idea if you're normal, so to speak. So this is a city with about 12,000 accidents per year, and you see at about 11.5% of those do result into property damages that we investigate that are related to city assets. Now, when we do our hotspot analysis, you'll see there's a pin map that shows you, hey, here's where all these damages were. The heat map kind of tells us here's where the concentration of those assets are getting damaged. And then you can see in here that there are 5 streets or intersections that are identified as hotspots that we would want to address initially. Next slide, please. So that was looking at the property damage. The next one is the personal injury. So we basically go through that same process all over again, looking at all of those, except not now property damages. Now we're looking at personal injuries. And you'll see here from this one with 12,000 accidents, 16.9% of the accidents result in personal injuries. And then we go through and we identify, those major streets. And if you can see on this top one, Washington Road, there were 47 accidents there. We would review all 47 accidents to determine those contributing factors and root causes. And then here's what we could do to try to reduce those injuries. Next slide, please. And this is with pedestrians. I think overall, nationally, we've seen a 5 to 10% increase in pedestrians being hit. So this is the same analysis that we came through here. What was very interesting about the analysis on this city, Washington Road is their biggest problem by far, because in every category we looked at, Washington Road was at the top of every one of those categories. So that's where all the damages and injuries and fatalities were occurring. So we kind of launched off a design for that and provided a lot of information to them on, how to address all of these issues. Now, since we're multi-year, we're constantly going to be monitoring the things that they do. Next slide, please. So what we do is we kind of go through and we look at a lot of technologies. For example, one of the things they had 6 accidents at an intersection 5 of those were jaywalking, and 1 of those was ignoring the crosswalk signals. So in those cases, we went back and looked at a little more of the history, and what we had found is that the pedestrians were typically the cause of those accidents. It wasn't the drivers. I mean, they were doing things they're not supposed to be doing. So we felt that putting technologies in to educate the pedestrian would probably be pointless. It would probably not give us the advantages we wanted. So what we recommended was to install some pretty unique technologies out there that basically are PIR sensors, right? You're sensing when people are around, and what that does is it sets off other technologies. Like you can see here, you got a flashing pedestrian sign, so that on these streets, when cars are coming and there are pedestrians in the area, the sign's going to start flashing. If it's nighttime, the LED lighting will get brighter, so we'll brighten up that area so that they can see more, see people that are in the area. So you got a sign warning you, and now the place is lit up. So those are kind of the concepts and ideas that we look at that are basically technology based. They're going to work 24/7. There's no interaction with the public. And the whole intent is really to change the behavior of the public and the drivers without anybody knowing, right? These are just things that are happening in the environment, as we normally go through our daily, routine. But the technologies are picking up what's going on here, and it's really modifying our behavior, because now people who work and go down the same street, they see this flashing sign all the time. They're going to know pretty quickly what that thing means, and then they're going to start slowing down. We tried to follow my kids in the cell phone model. As soon as they got a cell phone, their whole behavior changed, and they didn't really know it, right? Because everybody's walking around, with their head in the phone. Or you go and check on your kids at night, and their face is all lit up, right? So that's what we're trying to do with the safety, is basically modify behavior without basically them knowing and participating in it. Next slide, please. And this is kind of feeding back some of the information on Vision Zero and kind of why that thing is had such a difficult time getting off the ground in the U.S. From 2018, 2019 through the pandemic, the numbers for cities that were on Vision Zero have been pretty upsetting. I mean, they've been really high. They've gone the wrong direction. I've been to a lot of the cities that in Europe that started the Vision Zero. Their environments are totally different. Their cities are quite different. You go to Oslo, Norway, there are many sections of the city you can't take a car at all. So naturally, you're going to have a lot less accidents, fatalities, and things like that. Their cultures are quite different. Ours is kind of built around the automobile and being in the same area that people are going to be in. So we've got to make a lot of changes if we're going to try and reduce that. And then the last slide. Just basically reiterating our approach is data-based. We look at all of your data. We think that's the best way to kind of understand what's actually happening. If you're not using all the data, then you're trying to extrapolate or interpolate, what the data is really telling you. But if you look at all of it, it's pretty clear to what's actually happening. As you can see here, these are some of the cities that we're working with and some of the municipal leagues that we work with as well. And then lastly, the big benefits, no budget line item required. We don't use your resources, and we work 24/7. And every contract we have has a dedicated team for the life of the contract. That you want so that you don't run into any loss of knowledge about that city throughout the life of the program. So that when people are reviewing traffic accidents, they know where it is in the city. They've got an idea of what that environment is like. They know what assets belong to the city. They basically become very, very familiar with the city, and we don't want to lose that knowledge at all. So we put dedicated teams on it throughout the life of the contract. And that's all I have. If you guys have any questions.
All right, yes, sir. So number one, just appreciate you kind of getting into that. I think that speaks to, I think, when you're looking towards implementing certain things in traffic safety, especially involving cameras, having a real data-centered approach as to where and why you're using certain things is important. I think also allows for more transparency, so I do appreciate that. I do want to open up to the committee if there are any questions. No.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I was just wondering, how old is your company? And I know there's been an evolution from just recovery to also helping to do the planning around some of the remedies to prevent these things. Could you just tell me a little bit about the timeline and history?
Sure.
And also how many municipalities you support, that are like ours, local governments?
Okay. Well, we started in 2017. It was really the idea of the retired insurance people that we have. So we jumped into the financial recovery very, very quickly. The transition over to safety has been fairly recent, right? It's about a year old. And basically, that was pushed very hard by me. I have advanced degrees in electrical engineering, so this technology is kind of my forte. I've worked mostly in semiconductors and satellite communications, building encrypted networks for the government around the globe. So a lot of these technologies I'm very, very familiar with. I've also spent 6 years in research and development. So doing a lot of data analysis is pretty common. I've written a lot of peer-reviewed papers, books. So technology is my thing. I like solving a lot of these problems. So what we're doing is we are also pulling in universities and using students to help us with a lot of the data analysis to gather as much information as we possibly can. So we're pretty excited about this program. In terms of the cities, we're in about 7 different states, and we're just slowly picking up with Texas right now. We just picked up McKinney, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we probably have about 55 total cities that we work with. So we have people like Memphis, City of Atlanta. We have larger cities. We have consolidated governments, which are cities and counties. So basically, we got to deal with both types of assets, and we also work with counties as well. So we'll see a range from accidents from 400 accidents a year to about 40,000 a year. So it's a pretty broad range that we actually see in terms of the quantity of accidents. Also, the assets are quite different. We go from very small regional airports to the busiest one in the world. So we get used to seeing a lot of different things that are part of the accident profile, such as the MARTA, the Mass Area Rapid Transit System in Atlanta, bus systems, those kind of things. We work with city of Savannah, so we see ports, ships and all that coming in. So we've got a pretty broad range in terms of the kind of environments that we are used to seeing. And every one of those seem to have their own profile. They are quite different, and that's mostly because the movement of people in all of those are quite different. So while our history is not very, very long, it's very broad in terms of the stuff that we actually see.
Yeah, I was just curious about the different types of governments you work with. And then when you're working with cities like ours, what operating area do you usually coordinate with the most? Is it like the traffic engineering types or the public safety?
Yeah. So,
or both?
Yeah, I wish I had brought a graphic. I do have a graphic for that. Typically, well, for the most part, we don't interact with you a whole lot until that data is done. Until we've done all the analysis, we've got all the maps, we've got the report, we've submitted that to the city. Then we'll start interacting with you on, hey, here's the solution we proposed, because that's when the questions will come back. Why are you doing this? So that's when we typically have that dialogue and interaction until we're done. We typically don't like to get the cities involved in the analysis that we're doing because we don't want to be biased, right? We've worked with this. We've seen a lot of cities. We work with a lot of cities at the same time. We just don't want to get a bias. We want the data to really speak for itself and say what it's going to say. Then we put the reports and all that together, and then we open it up to everybody for interpretation to basically go look at it the way they want. But we make all of our recommendations, all that, just purely based off of that data. And we really don't consider any other cities or anything like that when we're doing the analysis until we're looking at what the potential solutions are. We'll go try to look and say, oh, you know, I think Memphis, we did something like that there. Then we'll go back and we'll say, all right, how did that actually pan out? And is that a good solution for Birmingham, right? I mean, just because it's done somewhere else doesn't mean you want to do it here. So we'll take those other cases into account. But in terms of, you know, really using a lot of your assets, we try to avoid that. I mean, because we know your guys have a million things to do anyhow. We try to avoid that until we've got all of our data done, and then we'll interact. But in terms of what departments we work with, is across the board. We do reach out with you know, public safety, transportation, you know, your fire chiefs, police chiefs. We're talking with everybody once we get into the evaluation piece. Once the city gets into the evaluation piece of what we've provided, we'll talk with everybody.
So, okay, and I won't ask every question that has come to my mind.
Sounds
but
great.
One final one for now is, so your company has sort of come of age during this surge in exhibition driving that cities are seeing. So it's more than just the growth, creating more traffic, and then you've got the distracted drivers on their cell phones. You've got actually people just doing all kinds of daring things on the road. And it's, you know, I think more prevalent than we're accustomed to seeing here in the later years. So how is that impacting? I mean, I guess the data is just bearing out. And so do you categorize
Yeah, we do.
based on, yeah.
Yeah, so when we look at the city, we break each one of these issues out separately. You know, pedestrian is separate from injury, which is separate from fatality, which is separate from property damage. And that's usually because of the quantities that we're dealing with. We try to lump it all together. It gets to be a lot to deal with.
But I mean, if you've got a drunk driver versus somebody on their cell phone versus somebody doing exhibition driving, do you get that
Yes,
granular
we do.
in the data?
And that granularity comes into the hotspot analysis. So when we've basically determined what these quantity of systemic issues, because we want to deal with those first because they've been here a long time, we want to deal with those first. That's when we get into that granularity. We go in, we review all those reports. Those are the contributing factors and root causes that we identify for every accident that's sitting in that hotspot. Historically, right? I mean, it may be 1 year's data, it may be 2 years' data. If we go back 3 years' data because we don't think 1 and 2 give us enough, we're going to look at all those accidents in that area over 3 years, and we're going to evaluate all of those factors to say what is the thing that's contributing to the most.
Yeah,
Now, the interesting thing is you ever have an intersection where everybody's a drunk driver in that intersection, we're going to start looking for bars in the area, right? So something's going on.
Well, and in some of your remedies, you know, it strikes me that most roads were designed to move cars and not pedestrians or cyclists. And so, you know, just design is a big issue for pedestrians and cyclists, impacts and fatalities and accidents and so forth. So I don't know if you all make recommendations around roadway design. I didn't really see that in the list. I saw the technology solutions. But
No, I think you're accurate. I think your assessment is spot on in that you will find areas where the design of the street is the cause for the systemic problem, right? So in those cases, we may make a recommendation. We don't get very heavy into pushing that because we don't design roadways.
That's not
what
your
we try
wheelhouse,
to do is we try to get around that is by looking at the contributing factors and saying, all right, what technologies are actually out there that can help us overcome that contributing factor? If there are things that we can ignore, it was like the example with the pedestrians at that intersection where we just said, all right, we got to ignore the pedestrian. I mean, there's just no way, if all of the accidents are always their fault, we've got to go find something else because it's going to be very hard to change their behavior if they're ignoring everything around them. So the only thing I can do is put things in the environment that educate the driver who's the one who's going to hit them. So, you know, we're going to take different angles to look at this to find out, all right, if it comes down to where the only thing I can think of is we got to redesign that street, we'll make that recommendation. But we typically don't have a whole lot of problem in finding a lot of technologies that'll help out. I mean, some of the cameras, I got information I want to share with you, that have a lot of capabilities, so that as you're growing and we're reviewing and learning more about these hot spots, you're going to get technologies in there that are going to cover a bunch of issues at once. Such as put a camera in place that's going to keep track of who's running the red light. You're going to be able to measure the speeds of cars in multiple lanes. You're also going to be able to measure pedestrians. You're going to see if somebody hits a pedestrian. It's a single camera that has a phenomenal amount of capability in it. And those are the kind of things that we want to promote to make sure that as we go through and we see something that's got a ton of issues with it, that we're going to give you one technology that's going to cover all of those issues. Because that's the only way to really knock the numbers back down and make things a lot safer. It's probably much easier than redesigning a street too. So that's why we'll go after it. It's much cheaper, faster, and easier to do. So we're going to push for the technologies usually.
Okay, I'm sure that.
Yes, I have several questions too. However, Councilor Clark, you got a lot of my questions, so I appreciate that. It saves me all that talking. I wanted to find out again, tell me again how your company is paid. Is it strictly from the insurance proceeds that come back from people who crash into our property? And
Yes, ma'am. So that covers the service. So it's a contingency fee, right? So basically, it's a multi-level service. So level one is really just the recovery of funds from the property damages, right? So we will take our fee from that and remit the rest of the money back to the city on a monthly basis with full detailed reporting every month. So you're going to know what's getting damaged all the time. So that's how that one works. So if you went to level two and jump into the safety program, then all we do is we increase our contingency fee to cover the analysis and all the stuff that we're going to do. So it follows the same model where you don't need a budget line item. It's still going to come out of what we're recovering from the property damages, right? Because we're just trying to keep the impact on the cities as small as possible. And we like to keep it performance-based so that, it's giving us motivation to do our best job, because that's how we get paid. So both of those are contingency-based.
okay, so you analyze the accident data, but not necessarily like the speeding ticket data in case we have areas where everybody's going 30 miles over the speed limit all the time.
Yeah, we're probably, we typically don't look at those issues. We probably could, but we do have some good technologies that we could recommend for you when you have problems like that, where you're seeing a lot of that and you think about putting an automated system in place to kind of take care of those issues for you. We can recommend the technologies to you for what you may want to go do in those cases.
Well, we certainly need the insurance help, because when our police officers write citations to people who've had accidents and they've destroyed public property, they don't send them to anybody except their own department, who doesn't pursue anybody insurance-wise. So we have a gap.
Right.
Well,
Birmingham is not different than anybody else we've seen. So
yeah, well, but in our neighborhoods where we've had damage to things like neighborhood monuments and things, with the neighborhood people have pursued the people who crashed into them, but the residents of a city should not have to pursue getting the city to recoup from insurance companies for these damages.
For city assets, right.
And normally what we do is things get damaged and we just remove them.
Right.
If the light gets knocked down, we just take it away.
Yeah.
We don't replace it, so we don't fix anything that gets broken unless it's something really, really important, like guardrails over a cliff.
Right.
So we really need help with that. But I'm interested in the problems we have with speeding, with running red lights, with running stop signs. Those things are all ones that touch our residents at home. Well, they touch them when they go out too, but in our neighborhoods, especially where my neighborhood is a very old neighborhood. They didn't have cars when it was built. So it's a pedestrian-friendly neighborhood with lots and lots
Except
of
when cars show up.
With lots and lots of cars now, you know. So I'm interested in us getting a grip on these bad driving habits that people have developed. And I also want to know if, for instance, we were going to put up, your recommendation was to put red light cameras at these intersections to try to change people's behavior for running red lights. Well, so would that be a service that y'all would install cameras, or would we have to go get cameras and monitor them and try to get them people to pay the tickets? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, let me first address the camera thing. Typically, a camera thing doesn't prevent accidents. So just remember, it's kind of I would say a post-accident solution is what it is. It's trying to adjust behavior, but it really doesn't necessarily stop a lot of the accidents. What we'll do, like in your district, is that we can focus a little bit and see what hot spots are in that area, see if they do have a lot of accident problems there, and then we'll dive into what those appropriate solutions are. Cameras will certainly impact people when they get the letter in the mail, with the fine for speeding. But the other thing too is that there's other signs and placards and speed bumps and other things like that you can put in areas that we would say show up in our hot spot that are just bad areas, and unfortunately we may have to irritate people a little bit to reduce those numbers, especially if they're systemic and they've always been there. We'll recommend doing things we think may be a little bit harder, for the public to swallow in the beginning, just to reduce those numbers down. But once you do that, then you pull those things right back out, and we'll monitor the numbers and see if it starts going back up. Usually that's not a big problem. The second part is addressing the installation. We do have another level of service where we do manage that portion of it for the city. One of the things with it that gets to be kind of a challenge is how the city funds it. Our management piece of it is another percentage increase on our contingency fee, right? So we would be able to manage, but it depends on what that solution is. So if it costs you another, $100,000 to go buy all these cameras and all that stuff, then we would need some kind of capital support from the city. But we can manage it for you to make sure that work's done.
Jump there. We've got another presenter who's going to probably speak more to how that type of program will be funded and things like that.
Well, I was just trying to figure out what his company
did
besides,
yeah.
I mean, I know you said you started out with the insurance business of trying to recoup money, but then got into the traffic issues because of all the accident reports you were reading. And so I'm just trying to see how far you go before you say, well, this is the end of our
So we'll
service.
go all the way through implementation, right?
Well, I think she wants to know specifically, or do y'all wouldn't acquire and install cameras and things like that?
Yes, we can go all the way through the implementation of putting those solutions in place. We will go find the contractors. I have several companies that we work with to do that, so we can get those technologies and we can actually get them installed in the city. I think one of the challenges you're going to have is the funding piece of it, going through procurement, trying to figure out if we identify 25 of these projects and they're all $50,000 each, are you going to RFP 50 projects? That's where the challenge will be in getting it through procurement to fund all of those activities. But we'll certainly be there to help manage that thing. Now, the other thing we can look at too is it really depends on how much money we're recovering from the level 1 portion of the service, because typically we return what we recover back to the city. If you guys were to turn around and say, take that and go fix problems over here, we can do that. That's not a problem. Then you're not waiting for funding or anything. You're using the funding you just got back from level 1 from the recovery to go implement some of these things. So that can be done as well.
Okay.
So in that way, you know, with the smaller projects, you know, we can identify everything and go through putting the solutions in place, and then we'll turn around and monitor it after the solution's in place on the smaller things. If the projects get pretty sizable beyond what we're normally recovering, you know, then that would be something that we could present back to the city as a project to consider.
Okay. And then the other question was about, we've talked about pedestrians being hit by cars, but we also have cyclists, and we have these little scooters that people just...
I was playing around with those earlier today. So
Yeah, and in addition to the cars and the trucks and the buses and all that, so those accidents would also be included in your...
Yeah, the scooters and the bicyclists and all that stuff all fall in the pedestrian kind of human-powered travel. So they all kind of fall in the same category. So we'll see those accidents as we're doing the review in those areas. So we'll be able to address those as well.
Yeah, because we see some pretty crazy driving with those things too. It's amazing.
Well, y'all don't have a lot of cameras up in the city now, do you?
Well,
otherwise, you might see me out there running around on that thing.
They're not catching the right stuff.
Yeah.
When you're talking about traffic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you, Todd. I think one of the things is being able to gather this data without putting a lot of strain on administration, like employees and things like that, and being able to get good data on that to go forward. So we appreciate you on that. Like, we probably got some more questions that we'll probably send over to you just to get a better feel for just 360 degrees of what you guys do. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for the time here. We are 24/7. We give you a single contact within our company, so you're always able to reach us anytime you need us. So if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get you whatever information you need. Thank you.
I had one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you working with any other cities in Alabama, or are all the cities that you serve in Georgia?
Well, we work with right now Montgomery and Montgomery County in Alabama. So they were really the first ones that we started working with, helped us build all of our tools with ALEA and CAPS at the University of Alabama. So luckily they broke us into Alabama, because every data system in every state you go into is a little bit different. Normally there's some state level agency, whether it's the DMV, the DOT, DHS, some agency is the maintainer of the state database for traffic accident reports. So we typically work with those organizations. That way we can eventually reach anybody's in the state's crash reports without bothering the client. I don't want to come to the city and talk to the police department and ask for access, because they're probably not going to give it to us. So we work with Montgomery and Montgomery County right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think real quick, we're going to kind of shift over more into the automated traffic enforcement piece.
We only have 7 minutes left. Planning and zoning starts in this room at 3:30.
Okay. Well, we'll, I guess, probably kick that out if we don't have any flexibility there, and pick that up at another date. So that'll work. No, I don't want to rush it. So we'll set a better time frame for that as far as that goes. So let's see. So I guess we'll skip number 3, and I guess we don't have. Well, do we have any unfinished business or?
This was it.
Or new business?
This was the unfinished
old business.
So,
That was a bit old business.
So just, even though we're not going to cover item 3, like the automated traffic safety enforcement, that is the possible camera solution to changing people's behavior.
Right.
Because I know it changes people's behavior. After you get that ticket in the mail, you don't run red lights anymore. Or at least you try not to, because you don't want to pay those big old tickets.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've seen some really good data on that, and like I said, we'll dive into that and kind of share with the public what we're sharing with legislatures and things like that. And so everybody has a good, well-rounded understanding of what that program is and why you put cameras in certain locations and what the anticipated outcome of that is. And so, like I said, we'll dive deep into that and kind of be able to adequately explain that entire process. But I'm excited about it because really being able to have 24/7 automated traffic enforcement in some of these areas that are problematic, especially as we're seeing, we're getting a lot of complaints about speeding, we're getting a lot of complaints about running stop signs, running red lights, and then kind of influx of exhibition driving, where people shut down intersections and things like that. So, we've got some issues. I think these present some really viable solutions, and we just really have to make sure we're educating everybody and as to what we're trying to do and why, just to be as transparent as possible through the whole process.
Yeah, and I really like this because it not only, if we do invest in the automatic traffic safety enforcement, being able to have the objective data to guide us in where we make the investment so that it's not emotional or the last, accident where babies were killed or something like that. It just gives us a way to make good decisions based on objective data.
Well, the last time we looked at this, which was about maybe 8 years ago, they were going to look at and find out which intersections had the most accidents and fatalities, but it didn't seem as thorough back then. And I'm sure everything has improved with age, right? But as I was driving here today, out of the 7 lights I drove through, people ran 2 of them. And they almost hit somebody on one of them, y'all, the horn blowing and everything. So, we have a big problem in Birmingham that people just don't like to stop. They want to go, go, go.
Yeah, so I think we're on the path. I think there's some solutions. Definitely need keep educating, definitely need some help in Montgomery. And like I said, we'll dive deep into those possibilities. Like I said, in between now and the session, we'll be working pretty hard to, get support from our other elected officials and the public as well. But I think the public has said loud and clear that they want, additional protections on the roadways. And so we've worked adding things like speed cushions, adding stop signs to intersections. But we've got to have enforcement, and this is a tool that will move us closer to that. And so,
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible I know we only meet once a month technically, but would it be possible for us to, schedule another meeting like in 2 weeks so that we could finish this discussion in a more timely fashion? I hate to wait a whole month.
And so we'll probably be no more than 3 weeks. We'll get with, I guess, us and see what works.
Get with us.
So say a lot more people get with us, but yeah, I know we have a conflict on the next 30 days out, 4 weeks out meeting. So we'll probably be, anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks on the next one. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, this is an important topic, and so we do want to kind of fully flesh it out. But yeah, like I said, so we've seen some things, and there's a lot of very good solutions out there, and so a lot of them are very minimal impact on the city from a budgetary standpoint. A lot of things I've seen don't require city funds up front, at all, and don't require line items. So we're excited to kind of get deeper into those things and continue to bring solutions to the table.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Number 6.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That motion passes. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.